word comes to mind when you think of Black woman? Strong? Resilient? Competent? Self-assured? Seductive? Impervious? Queen? Whatever it may be, the truth is, Black women are varied and diverse. They come in different shapes, sizes, shades, educational backgrounds, religious traditions, and even different regions. But there is one thing that we all have in common, and that is our connection to Black men. Love it or hate it, Black men are a part of us, and we can't deny it. Why? Well, because their DNA runs through our bodies. And that's actually not a bad thing. While listening to the false promises of Black love, I had the opportunity to study and search out many of the different claims being made. While I understand and appreciate any person's attempt to address the struggles that are unique to Black women, I found information presented within the video to be problematic and wanted to address a few claims that I believe were either taken out of context or downright incorrect. Now, about the Snow Bunny crisis, y'all, Black men marry Black women more than any other group of women. Now, we are more likely to see a Black man with a preference compared to a Black woman with a Brad, that's true, but Black men are still wifing up Black women at a rate of about 85%. Many like to cite the study of Doherty, Hamilton, and Goldsmith regarding colorism, and they promote the idea that light-skinned Black women are more likely to be married than dark-skinned Black women. But if you study it closely, you actually find out that this is not the case for Black women over the age of 30. And by the way, most Black women tend to get married older anyway. Furthermore, light-skinned Black women who grew up in a single-parent household face the same amount of disadvantages in marriage as dark-skinned women who grew up in single-parent households. And by the middle age, there are more dark-skinned women who are married than light-skinned women simply because there are more dark-skinned women than light-skinned women, period. Good news is, whether you're high value, middle income, or working class, there are Black men on all levels who are open to marrying the right Black woman, whether she is light-skinned or dark-skinned. Now, about men not paying child support or stepping up to the plate as fathers, yeah, that's true in some cases, but that's actually a pretty small percentage of men. Nearly 54% of Black men are single and childless. And of these single parents within the Black community, 89% of single parents are women, and only 11% of single parents are men. So what does that mean? Well, quite frankly, that there is a large percentage of women who are procreating with a very small group of men. You do the math. As for men not being able to support a household, granted, but the same can be said for American men in general. 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and even white economists out there are reporting on white rage and the growing discontent that white men and men of all ethnicities have over their loss of ability to sustain their home on one income. This is not a Black American problem. This is an American problem, and to overlook this would be short-sighted at best. Now, about hypergamy, y'all, the US was rated last in upward mobility, which basically is the ability for a person to move up in class. So while it's certainly nice to dream about meeting your Prince Charming, your chances of actually marrying into wealth are incredibly slim if you were not born into it. And the chances of hypergamous marriage sink even lower if you are seeking to marry outside of your race due to interethnic competition. Now, when we're speaking about violence, most ethnicities have high rates of bi-directional violence. While men are more likely to commit violent crimes, the data shows that interpersonal violence is typically initiated by women. According to a collaborative study by the Journal of Partner Abuse and the Association of Domestic Violence Intervention Program, 50.9% of domestic abuse among whites was interpersonal, compared to 49% among Latinos and 61.8% among African Americans. Now, in terms of initiation, Black women are 2.27 times more likely to initiate violence towards Black men compared to white women, who are 2.26 times more likely to initiate violence towards white men, and Hispanic women, who are 1.24 times more likely to initiate violence against Hispanic men. Reasons for this are inconclusive, but women are now fighting back, and in many instances, fighting first. This is true across all ethnicities, and especially in the cases of Black women. Regarding science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, also known as STEM, women make up an incredibly small percentage of STEM, particularly the hard sciences. African American women in particular make up only 2.9% of higher education degrees earned in STEM and 1% of all engineering degrees, compared to 7% of Black men. Black women make up only 2% of all STEM jobs in the workforce, compared to 20% among white women. When it comes to STEM, Black women are underperforming in comparison to both white women and Black women. 72% of Black undergraduate engineering degrees are given to Black men, and 75% of Black graduate engineering degrees are given to Black men. So, unless we are including nursing, psychology, or other soft sciences, Black men outnumber Black women in STEM education and STEM jobs in every single category. About women outpacing their men in education. The same can be said of all races. Across every ethnic group, you can find more women than men in college, with the exception of the STEM fields. Even with that, higher education does not always equate to higher pay. The wage gap still exists, and while there are many different theories as to why, according to the Wall Street Journal, 3% of Black female earners make more than 6 figures annually, compared to about 10% of Black male earners. Black men are twice as likely to make more than $250,000 a year than Black women are. So, no matter how you look at it, men are not really looking for handouts from the women who make less than them. This is further solidified when we look at debt and assets. And since Black women tend to have more debt and less assets than their fellow Black men, then it's safe to assume that the majority of us won't find ourselves in the position of paying another man's way, unless he is indeed a pookie. Now, when we're talking about the 50-50 paying setup, we can thank equality and feminism for that. I mean, after all, women who have decided to be modern, career-oriented, strong, self-sufficient, independent, highly educated, and boss babes, they shouldn't require the chivalry of the men that they are equal to, right? I mean, after all, that would be disrespectful to the equal dynamics that we have fought for. Or do we really want a modern setup with traditional benefits? Regarding the book referenced, Is Marriage for White People? Y'all, Ralph Richard Banks' analysis has actually been criticized by numerous sociologists for generalizing the experiences of Black women. In the book, he acts as if most Black women have elite educations and salaries, but only a small minority do. Furthermore, calling for Black women to date out is not really a solution to the problem, especially since most Black women are not acculturated to compete against other women for the men in their respective communities. I must reiterate that only 3% of Black women make 6 figures or more, and only 0.5% of Black women have a PhD. Meanwhile, about 1/3 of Black women live at or beneath the poverty line. We've already established that, generally speaking, men make more money than women. And so while some high-powered career women may find it difficult to connect with a man on their income level, the percentage of women who are in that situation is so incredibly small. And Even if they are to expand their options, they have to now compete with other races of women who make more money and have more education than Black women do on average. The good news is, most Black women don't have to worry about ever finding themselves in that situation. Now, about the claim that Black women never sought out anybody in the Black community, ever heard of daughters of the trade? How about Black women who collaborated with imperialist nations? How about the Black woman who chose to marry European slave traders to profit from the mass enslavement and genocide of African people? Finda Lawrence, Madame Tinubu, Elizabeth Skelton, Mary Faber? How about the Black woman Azulu Curry, who tried to assassinate Martin Luther King during a time when he was building international alliances with revolutionary leaders like Kwame Nkrumah and Kenneth Kaunda? Or a woman like Ava Rich, who opposed leaders like Malcolm X, who advocated for self-determination and Black liberation on an international level? They never existed? History shows us that good Black women such as Amy Jacques Garvey, Henrietta Vinton Davis, Queen Mother Moore, Betty Shabazz, Marimba Ani, Ama Manzama were all on the side of revolutionary men, and yet selfish ones stood against them. Now, when we look at the collapse of Black marriage rates, there are actually a few theories that analyze the history of Black families. You have the African-centered model advocated by scholars such as Wade Nobles and Ama Manzama. Those emphasize that Ma'afa and the impact of slavery and genocide on African peoples are a primary factor for the collapse. The Black feminist model, advocated by Michelle Wallace, Bell Hooks, etc., emphasizes the Black patriarchy theory and the idea that cis heterosexual Black men are middlemen oppressors standing between white people and marginalized subgroups in the Black community. The cultural deprivation model emphasizes the idea that Black culture is defective and the root of the majority of Black problems, while ignoring the impact of structural racism. The exchange model encourages Black families to partake in social formations that are based upon a precedent of social and institutional rewards. The assimilation model emphasizes the idea that assimilation into Western values is the best path forward for Black families. The historical materialist model essentially is now Marxist idea that the material conditions and resources govern the movement of Black families. And the internal colonialism model affirms that the Black community is an eternal colony of the American society. The study of Black families has taken on many theories over time, but when we consider the history of racism, the impact of industrialization, and more, we can see that the disruption of Black families resulted from many factors, including but not limited to misandrous terrorism specifically directed at Black men, the belief among Black feminists that job opportunities and higher education were a better opportunity than marriage to men, industrialization, and the difficulties rural Southern families had in adjusting to urban environments up north, and public policy that treated Black people as objects instead of humans. The Moynihan Report is one of many documents specifying that money was not the primary reason for the growing divorce rate in the Black community. In his report, he mentions the Aid to Dependent Children Program, ADC, later named the Assistance for Families with Dependent Children, AFDC. This was a social safety net program implemented in 1935 as a component of the Social Security Act. Though the program was initially for widows and orphans, many states implemented extra requirements, such as the man in the house rule and residential requirements that prevented Black women from taking advantage of the program. Jim Crow advocates who constructed these extra requirements said they were for moral reasons and called it morality clauses, but really the goal was to just maintain institutional racism. The worst part is that government bureaucrats were known to routinely visit the homes of AFDC welfare recipients to see whether or not men were there. This pressure made it increasingly difficult for poor Black families to survive. The man in the house rule was eventually abolished in 1968 by the Supreme Court due to its racist motives. So how does this policy impact Black families? Well, in the 30s, when the AFDC program was implemented, the divorce rate among Black and white families was around 2%. The dependent children claims in the AFDC due to desertion went from less than a third in the 30s to 2/3 in the 60s. In the 60s, Black male employment and income went up, while Black male poverty went down. At the same time, however, Black female welfare claims and single motherhood rose. Based upon these factors alone, it is not true that broke dusties are responsible for the destruction of Black families. There were clearly other factors at play. The Monahan report specifies that the destruction of African family structure and the inherent attacks against Black men through institutional racism basically created an unnatural separation between Black men and Black women. These factors also made the plantation-based matriarchy a default standard in the Black community. In spite of this, numerous scholars, from Sterling Stuckey to Tommy Curry, have detailed how Black men have always fought to maintain their African heritage and cultural institutions despite chattelization and genocide. Some of these were Free African Society, African Lodge, African Methodist Episcopal Church, Freedom's Journal, etc. And let's not forget the many rebellions and revolutions that Black men fought and died in to abolish chattel slavery, such as the Young's Revolution in Mexico, the Haitian Revolution, Sam Sharp's Baptist Revolution, the Palenque Revolution in Cartagena, the Gullah Wars in the US. I mean, you get the picture. Black men have been progressive when it comes to the rights and empowerment of Black women, and our history shows this. From Prince Hall, who helped Belinda Sutton draft the first successful reparations claim, to leaders like Marcus Garvey, who implemented a 50% gender quota in the management of the UNIA institution. This shows that Black men have always been committed to protecting and providing for Black women against all odds. Now, about divesting. Men of other races are not very likely to marry Black women. About 0.22% of Asian men marry Black women, less than 1% of white men marry Black women, and less than 1% of Hispanic men marry Black women nationwide. This isn't really surprising when we consider tense racial dynamics and, unfortunately, the bad reputation that precedes us Black women. Here's the bigger picture. It's definitely true that there are many problems within the Black community, but we'll never be able to move forward as long as we see each other as enemies, the source of the problem, and can never be self-reflective. If we hold onto lies, false narratives, half-truths, or start spewing propaganda against ourselves, we are participating in our own demise and our own unhappiness. Sure, there is work Black men need to do, no doubt. But let's not overlook the ones who are building and doing the work. We should support, work with, and celebrate those who are at work, often behind closed doors and often unnoticed. Those men rarely get recognized because, quite frankly, it's more entertaining, validating, and sensational to complain about the dusties that we are secretly attracted to. Meanwhile, the good men who build, they get overlooked for the hot, sensational, and often promiscuous F-boys. But complaining about the small percentage of baby daddies or bashing men while avoiding self-accountability will not solve the problem in the long run. A more helpful solution, in my humble opinion, is first, encouraging women to be introspective and to look honestly at the different decisions they have made to lead to the situations in their life, whether good or bad, helpful or hurtful, hopeful or dreadful. We must first acknowledge the truth about ourselves. And sometimes that is not always pretty, but it's the first step towards healing and towards a more peaceful existence. Mental health issues, they're real. And many of us women find ourselves susceptible to these issues due to trauma and many different factors. But that's nothing to be ashamed of. This is an opportunity for us to face the different demons that fill our minds. And this is where strong and healthy spiritual communities can help. And I don't know, maybe consider a 12-step program. AA, Al-Anon, CODA, OA, or even therapy. Anything to get us started. The goal is to get us to address the reasons why we as women might constantly find ourselves in endless cycles of toxic relationships and situationships, if that is indeed your story. We must first be willing to acknowledge the truth about ourselves before we can ever think about pointing a finger at others. And once we have done that and made peace with God and ourselves, then we'll be better equipped to find righteous men who have a vision to build. So I ask you, are black men really the problem? Or is it something else? What do you think? Let me know. Leave your questions, comments, concerns below. I'm Chez, Charde, and I tackle tough topics with truth. Thank you so much for listening. If you've gotten this far, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button, don't forget to hit the like button, and don't forget to share. Bye. A common trait among broken women today is to deflect, deny, and lie. We've all seen it before. You know, avoid accountability, shift blame, or twist the story in a way that makes her look like the victim, even if she is in fact guilty, or at the very least partially responsible. One way we women can know whether or not we are being truthful or deflecting is to simply acknowledge the facts. Not lie, not make excuses, not deny our actions, simply acknowledge the facts. While listening to Mahogany Pink's recent video, many claims were made about my positions that were untrue. Interestingly enough, most of the sources and statements provided within my original video were overlooked and were never refuted, including Monahan Report and Monahan Scissors, my explanation of the Black family structure and what it reveals about systematic oppression, Jim Crow, and the institutional laws that reinforced this system of white supremacy, the improbability of hypergamous relationships, the unlikelihood of marrying out, the different initiatives and movements created by Black men and Black women who work together to fight against white supremacy, the incorrect claims previously made about Black men in education in STEM, the daughters of the trade, and the history of our women who were not blindly loyal to men, no mention of the economic stats I provided, and more. Now, was this an honest oversight, or were these claims completely ignored? I will leave this up to the listener to decide. But I will gladly address her most recent video as a way to clarify and reinforce my positions on these important matters being stated. By now, you all know I have been termed pick-me. Miss Mahogany Pink states in her video that pick-me's have the nasty habit of promoting male supremacy, also known as male patriarchy, according to feminists. I've never promoted a woman being in an abusive relationship or being a doormat. I have also never told a woman that she is required to physically protect her man, as that certainly goes against the traditional patriarchal values she accuses me of holding. Actually, quite the opposite. I've had multiple women come on and talk about the ways they were able to escape abusive relationships. I've also seen other women within the space do the same, including Riva TV. But what's strange about these accusations is that we were accused of promoting male headship, as if this is something heterosexual women don't want. I mean, don't women want male leaders, male protectors, male provision, male support, male infrastructure, male fathers, men making decisions for the families? Don't women want to rest in their femininity? Someone has to work for us to rest. Someone has to handle the stress for us to relax. Isn't this what divesting is about? Finding men who can lead and love us where we are at. So then what exactly is the problem again? Or is male headship, aka the patriarchy, a problem? Do you prefer a 50-50 relationship? Do you want a co-leadership? And if you do divest, do you think white men in particular, who are well known for the patriarchal ways, hence why feminism was born, will be quick to relinquish something that they created and maintain? Which is it? What do you want? About pick-meishes being insecure. Yeah, Danica Marie, Chantel Simone, Courtney Michelle, Rivet TV. Yep, you're right, they're insecure. They are so insecure about themselves that they cam up almost every chance they get. Full face, full body, makeup on, makeup off, workout regimen, meal included. Man, that's a lot of low self-esteem compared to women who won't even cam up to show their face. Pick-me's aren't really in fear of scarcity because men are actually attracted to pick-me's. There is no shortage of men interested in women like us because men find that pick-me's are worthy of being picked. Also, I discussed in details the analysis of the Black family structure. I broke down the different theoretical models of analysis from the Marxian model to the Black feminist model to the Afrocentric model. Your theories are based upon the Duluth model, which, at its foundation, asserts that Black men are naturally criminal and that they oppress Black women because of their alleged position as middlemen in the white patriarchy. That model has been debunked numerous times from sociologists and Black male studies professors on the grounds that it lacks scientific rigor and empirical evidence. On top of this, Black men are attacked more than any other demographic in intimate relationships. As for us pick-me's offending the sisterhood, really? Our main concerns are teaching women how to get the results that they actually want. And that requires us to challenge lies that would lead women to deflect or harm themselves in the long run. That's what we are the most concerned about. And if the argument is that we never put men in a good light and instead desire to throw other women under the bus, you must not be familiar with my channel. I created the Black Men Built That series as a way to celebrate the extensive contributions that Black men have made to the development of modern society. And I continue to promote Black women business owners and entrepreneurs who are pursuing healthier lives. I also discussed in detail why Black men are the best option for Black women. This is largely because Black men are the most likely to marry Black women today. Not to mention that they make more money, have less debt, and also have less kids. And let's be honest, Brad just ain't wifing a Black woman like that. If he was, then these divested channels would be posting their own marriage photos for everyone to celebrate. Now, to reiterate, the reason I posted the skin shade influence on Black female marriage study was because y'all like to use it as a way to lie on Black men and state that the majority of Black men who are married have a light-skinned wife. As previously stated, colorism is real. Yes, it is real, but it doesn't affect you. The light-skinned woman under the age of 30, they have an advantage if they come from a two-parent household. Outside of those conditions, there is not a significant difference in how dark-skinned and light-skinned women are proposed to, as was clearly defined by the Black scientists who used the Likert skin shade scale in their research methodology. This means that good, marriageable Black women after the age of 30 are getting married regardless of skin shade. And isn't this what you want? Don't act like y'all are trying to get married at 20 or 21. You are teaching young Black women right now to not get married, young anyways, to live their best life, get the bag, level up, hot girl summer, and self-love, and then settle down when they're ready. So, Black women win. Bravo! Let's revisit the single parenthood stats. Now, shall we? Around 54% of Black men are single and childless. 30% of Black men are married. That leaves 16% of the Black male population that are available to produce children out of wedlock. Though it is possible that the majority of Black men over 50 can have children, only 1/3 of these men were never married. Not to mention, this age group of Black men only accounts for about 18% of the entire Black male population. 89% of the single parents in the Black community are women, and only 11% are men. About 57% of Black women have children. 59% of Black mothers have multiple baby daddies, while a minority of Black men, about 46%, have kids. And only 1/3 of this group, or about 15% of Black men, have multiple baby mamas. Black women have more children than black men, 15% of which come from non-black men, and based upon the marriage stats, most of these women are not married to those non-black men. Not to mention, black women have more STDs than black men. They are obviously having more sex, and therefore obviously having more children. The evidence speaks for itself. The Pew study does not deal with parental contributions into children's lives. A solo parent and a single parent are synonymous. 89% of single parents in the black community are mothers. This study says that solo mothers are more likely than cohabitating and married mothers to live with their parents and are the least likely to be primary caregivers. With relation to black men, the CDC shows that black men are actually more involved in their children's lives than other races of men. So the myth of the absent broke baby daddy is not a part of the general reality of the black community. Interestingly enough, you ignored the fact that black men have more STEM degrees than women do. As mentioned before, black men have more money and more assets than black women do. This means that most black women who date and marry black men are, by definition, practicing hypergamy, just from a more realistic perspective. Now, about education, I'm educated and come from a long line of teachers and professors, so I have no problem with a woman pursuing a higher career. It's just that men are not attracted to a woman's accomplishments, just their femininity. If you want to go to school, go ahead and do it, but don't expect it to give you the upper hand in the dating and mating market, or to substitute for true femininity. Now, about debt, why did I bring that up? Because debt is baggage in a relationship. Any woman who wants a provider must understand that the debt she has becomes his financial liability, and most men don't want to be seen as a lifeline. About half of black women who take out student loans will default. The other half, it will take at least 20 years to pay off a standard undergraduate loan. For certain professional masters and PhD loans, repayment could take up to 45 years. The peak of a woman's income is after she hits the wall. That is to say, if she pays off the debt, she will pay it off after her fertility window. This is why women should try to enter marriage with as little debt as possible, so they do not become a financial burden and liability to their provider husbands. The number you used for interracial relationships? You're using the Pew Research analysis of interracial study that looks at 2014 and 2015. That is not the last 5 years. However, Black demographics calculates the total amount of black marriages according to the census, which states that 85% of black men who are married have a black wife. In comparison, however, less than 1% of white, Asian, and Hispanic men who are married have a black wife. That means black men are more than 80 times more likely to marry a black woman than a non-black man is. So if the goal is to increase marriage prospects for black women, no matter how you put it, she'll have much better luck looking within the black community for a husband. The study referenced in my previous video about domestic violence was from the editorial board of the peer-reviewed Journal of Partner Abuse and the advisory board of the Association of Domestic Violence Intervention Programs, which includes battery intervention providers, anger management counselors, mental health professionals, and research scholars dedicated to evidence-based practices worldwide. These resources are used by policymakers, victim advocates, law enforcement, judges, attorneys, family court mediators, and anyone interested in family violence. The asymmetrical aspect of interpersonal violence between men and women does not negate any of the data presented. This is because there are many different types of interpersonal violence. The study analyzes data in 5 sample categories, which are epidemiological population samples, community samples, school and college samples, legal or female-oriented clinical treatment-seeking samples, and samples from the U.S. military. 80% of the sample categories analyzed within the peer-reviewed study showed that female-perpetuated unidirectional violence was higher than male-perpetuated unidirectional violence. The specific example you cherry-picked out of context where men perpetuate unilateral violence against women, represents only 27.7% of that category. Overall, this represents only 5.4% of the total data analyzed by the research study. In fact, even with that context, women generally initiate more violence than men, and Black women initiate violence more so than any other race of women. None of the studies reported that anger and retaliation were significantly more of a motive for men than women's violence. Instead, 2 papers indicated that anger was more likely to be a motive for women's violence as compared to men. Furthermore, the Journal of Partner Abuse study, using over 82,000 sampling units, showed that Black men are the most victimized demographic of any population group. With reference to your femicide claims, just to be clear, Black men are not committing 50% of all homicides, nor are Black women being killed every 5 hours by Black men. Referring to the sources that are commonly used to make these false claims, FBI stats speak to arrest and not convictions. 70% of all crimes do not lead to arrest, as the FBI has stated. Nearly 1/3 of murders are unsolved, and they don't know the race of about 1/3 of homicide perpetrators. Even if a person is convicted, 50% of exonerations are Black men, and majority of Black men who are exonerated for rape and murder. According to these considerations, Black men are not killing Black women in mass because less than 1% of the Black male population actually commits a violent crime. Regarding your final 2 claims, the study dealing with pregnancy mortality uses a data set from the 90s, and it does not consider chronic illnesses and income as a factor for the death of women. When you consider those factors, Black women have the same rate of homicide in relationships as white women have. Now, regarding this particular stat, you used the exact same type of self-reported survey that you were slandering before, whereas I used peer-reviewed journal analysis. The study surveyed more women than men, tilting the data in the favor of women. The findings of this study are likely flawed, as they actually admit in the study themselves. Here we have established 2 paradigms. One, dealing with statistical reality, and the other dealing with emotional narrative. We all know which one is which. Pick-me's get picked while y'all hide behind a mirage of male-bashing level-up hypergamy. Brad ain't really checking for Black women like that, especially if she's plus-sized. We all know behind this girl power facade is trauma bonding. And let's keep it real. You can't even celebrate the relationships that you have with Brad because they aren't marrying Black women en masse. Why? Because you aren't first line in their community. Your bodies are much larger than what they would prefer. You are not acculturated to survive in the world. You are loudmouths, and they don't like that. Most of them are not buying you engagement rings or paying off debts because they are ashamed to commit to you. And y'all are addicted to talking about the Black men that you hate. These are the bottom 15% of Black men that you are sexually attracted to. As long as women reject basic standards of femininity and grace, they will continue to exist in a toxic cycle that manifests as a sisterhood of failure. This platform will never allow degradation and dehumanization of men and women alike because the miserable in our midst desire cancerous company. Over here, we tackle tough topics with truth. Sis, Black men are not your problem. Please look in the mirror, take some accountability, and begin the healing process. Keep your head up and do what is best. And please stay out of this mess.
Somebody gotta say it, and I be the to say it. Fellas, you wanna know why you Black queens is choosing these white men? I'm gonna tell you. See, a lot of Black men have a lack of ability to see the greatness in the Black woman. They view us in a f***ed up light. You know why? Because they motherfucking mamas was f***ed up. They get mad at us for seeing the potential in them. Like, nigga, you're great, nigga. But no, they think it's nagging. Then the Black bitch go get a white nigga. This motherfucker kissing toes, bowing down, buying houses on the first day. He's addressing that Black queen as a queen. He actually listens to what the she got to say. He take heed of her interests. He don't tell her, oh, that's a dumb idea. I'm just a narcissist, and no, you're not gonna be great. Instead, he pours into her because he knows having her is fucking valuable. Nigga, nigga, your value just went up with a black bitch. They fucking worship us, but don't shoot the messenger.
Pretty much everything that she said is what y'all probably have all heard. We've all heard for years now. Basically, white men worship us. Black men don't know how to value black women. You know, black men are immature. They're messed up. Yeah, everything that she said. But I want to play it again real quick because there's a few things that I want to specifically highlight.
Somebody got to say it. And I'll be the bitch to say it. Fellas, you want to know why you black queens is choosing these white men? I'm going to tell you. See, a lot of black men have a lack of ability to see the greatness in the black woman.
Okay, first off, let's just keep it a buck. If your idea is to swirl hypergamously, you coming with that vernacular, I'm sorry, already you're limited. You are already limited. You coming with that literally kind of vernacular, like just that whole persona. You are getting a quote unquote bottom shelf Brad. You are not hypergamy leveling up. You are getting the dude, you are getting the white dude living in the hood or living in the trailer park. That's who you're getting. And I don't understand why black women like to throw this stuff around as if they can just go and jump classes and marry men who are like have a lineage or have great grandfathers who went to Harvard and Cambridge and own multiple properties. Like it's nothing. Like there aren't class distances. Like there aren't money distances. Like there aren't actually women who are already in the class that these men are from that they're now having to compete with. You can't come there talking like you're from the hood and expect you're going to get a dude literally from like freaking, I don't know, like I said, Harvard. You can't do that. If you're coming with that kind of energy, you're going to get a guy who's in a hood just like you. Maybe a white dude, maybe a dude from a trailer park. This whole swirler conversations is happening. They're completely overlooking not only race, but class and how they are very much connected. So that's what already I listened to her and I'm like, nobody believes you because first of all, that persona already is going to be very off-putting to the white culture. Like very, very off-putting. So what?
They view us in the fucked up light. You know why? Because they mamas was up. They get mad at us for seeing the potential in them.
Okay, I've heard that too. Their mamas is effed up. Or, they have abandonment issues. They have relationship issues. Okay, granted. You don't. Somehow, black woman and black man grew up in the same household. But black men inherited all the issues and black women didn't. Y'all see how delusional this can be? But here's the thing. This is what we've heard time and time and time again. This is a conversation that we've heard relating to dating and marrying. All the black men are this, and that. And then usually when the black man goes and decides to date, even if he dates to marry out, maybe if he dates and marries abroad, he grabs his passport, gets a black woman, but she's maybe African from the diaspora. He's lame and he's gay. Or he's corny. But when a black man does it, or a black woman does it, oh, it's because these men know how to treat her better. Y'all see what I'm saying? Let me continue. Like,
great. But no,
like, again, y'all really think Brad, the business owner, the vice president of the financial industry, you really think that he's bringing home somebody acting like this? What are we even talking about? She's throwing all kinds of N-words, N-bombs, as if she can just walk into the white community and all the high value white men are just gonna just fawn all over her. Like, get real. This is delusional. And this is what I'm saying. This is the stuff that we've heard. And I know this particular video is a little bit extra, but I wanted to play it because I'm like, not only is this extra, this whole thought process, this whole idea to me is extra. And I think how she's representing it is great because it's like, she sounds crazy to me. And this whole idea is literally crazy. It doesn't make sense.
Get snagging. Then the black bitch go get a white nigga. This motherfucker kissing toes, bowing down, buying houses. Oh.
Okay, so a common talking point. Again, that black woman because literally these are going to be women in the lower middle class or just lower class, because most Black women, that's actually their socioeconomic position. So these poor Black women, right? Case in point, these poor Black women all of a sudden just decide to date and marry white men, and they just worship them and buy them houses and give them all these riches and fantasies and all this luxury and treat them like queens. I'm like, if that was the case, then feminism wouldn't exist. I mean, if white men treated their women so amazingly like queens, if they doted and fawned all over just women, period, like they were queens and goddesses, then feminism wouldn't exist. You wouldn't have had a movement that was started by their women, because they were unhappy with the way that they were treated in this system. They wanted more power and control. They wanted more agency. So again, if white men were just treating all these women like queens and had all this money and had all these powers and resources, and were just allowing these women to be just, again, doted all over, feminism wouldn't happen. The last couple of decades wouldn't have ever been. Y'all see how delusional this stuff is. Let me continue.
On the first day, he's addressing that Black queen as a motherfucking queen.
Okay, again, I can't at this point. When we talk about queens, ladies, let's please make sure that we are at least wearing our own natural hair. I think there needs to be a standard. If you are going to refer to yourself as a queen and a goddess, you have got to be wearing your own crown. Please, that is the bare minimum. I don't know any queen in the history anywhere of any nation that has literally been walking the crown of another woman, of another empire, of another dynasty. I don't know that. And yet, and still, we do this all the time in the Black community. And it's like, okay, if you want to do that, fine. But then don't go around calling yourself queen when you're not even living up to the bare minimum. Queens at least wear their own crown. We're not even wearing our own crown consistently. This is why I'm saying, like, this is not a serious conversation. Folks, this is not a serious conversation. Let me continue.
Actually listens to what the she got to say. He take heed of her interests. He don't tell her, oh, that's a dumb idea. I'm just a narcissist, and no, you're not going to be great. Instead, he pours into her because he knows having her is valuable. Nigga, value just went up with a Black bitch.
Again, okay, so in order to believe this, you have to have zero understanding of history, period. If everything that she said is true, feminism wouldn't have existed, in the last, couple hundred years of American history would be null and void. So again, I want you to take this in context of what we actually know happens. Interracial, here, and again, I've said this before, I'll say this again. Interracial sex, or interracial mixing, if you will, has been going on since the birth of this nation. White men have had access to Black women since the birth of this nation, consistently. Even if you look at down to the anti-miscegenation laws, the laws, they were very particular, and they had heavy burdens on Black men and white women who got together, but the burdens were a lot lighter on white men, on Black women, a lot different. And then especially, Black people weren't even considered property for the first couple hundred years. And so it's like, they could do whatever they wanted with property. Case in point, white men have had access to Black women, like literally for hundreds of years. So that's not having a relationship with a white guy, getting his attention, having him to maybe even buy you a meal or so because he has generational wealth. Not impressive. That's been happening literally forever. But to me, sometimes the way it's just, we paint this whole grass is greener on the other side as if all white people are this and all Black people are that, is just completely disconnected from reality. Also, there are white families out here today who very much struggle. 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That's including white people, Asian, Black, Hispanic, Americans, period. So your average white guy right now is upset that he can't afford to buy a home or a vacation home, or can't afford to have his stay-at-home wife or have his wife stay at home and he go to work and get a pension and a 401k and send his kids to college and also have money for vacations. Your average white man in America can't even live up to that lifestyle. But somehow the fact that 80% of Americans are living like paycheck to paycheck, but yet and still all these white men just somehow love Black women, although they marry Black women at a rate of like less than 1%, depending upon the context, right? I think like 1% of white men currently have a Black wife. But case in point, the math ain't mathin'. The math ain't mathin'. And we can go back and forth and argue the numbers, but what we do know is white men have had access to Black women for hundreds of years. If they really wanted us to be their number one, then I think by now that could have happened. And for you to paint a picture as if all these white people are just living luxuriously, you have to be devoid from history and you have to be devoid from reality in order to come to those conclusions. That's all I'm saying.
You worship us, but don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah, and then she ended that white men worship Black women. White men worship Black women so much that they don't marry them, that their hair literally was discriminated against down to the point where they had to pass a law just so that Black women could feel comfortable wearing their own natural hair in white only spaces or white brand spaces, but they love you so much. Really? Like they love you so much that there are literally laws in place to ensure that you weren't considered human. And then even after that, there were anti-miscegenation laws. There were different things, again, to instill that you were not put on the same level class-wise, wealth-wise. Like that's, to me, this is where these arguments, when we want to make these broad statements to literally implicate an entire group of men, and then to literally overlook or just give a large pass to another group of men, it's like, in order for you to do that, again, you have to be devoid of history, of any basic understanding. Yes, there are Black men out there who do crazy things, obviously. But that doesn't mean all Black men are crazy. It doesn't mean they're all narcissists. It doesn't mean they're all broke. It doesn't mean they all can't. It's like, no, that is just not reality. Of course, yes, there are still good, white guys out there who are in marriages with Black women. That does happen. But all I'm saying, it's like, you can't devoid that from the history of what has happened and what is still happening today. The only way you can come to these conclusions, again, is by basically living in fantasy land. But this is what I'm saying. You guys know the different excuses that women make when they talk about why they want to date and marry out. I think most people, I don't think really care if you're dating and marrying out. I don't think people really care if you're happy, you're not being mad at nobody, no big deal. But we're familiar at the different excuses that Black women make and have made. But when Black men do it, or if they do it, if they date and marry out, or if they just grab their passport, or if they don't fit into a very small, closed definition of what Black masculinity is, then they're corny, they're lame, or they're gay. And this is where I'm saying, ladies, we have to start to be a little bit more open-minded about these conversations. And can we also be honest? Nothing that she said was honest. It was narrative, we've all heard it, but it was completely dishonest, and it was devoid of just historical facts and devoid of reality. So, okay, I have one more, and then I'm gonna open up the call lines. Black men are colorist, and if they have their preferences, if they are texturist, are you looking at white men that way? Are you doing it? Because best believe that this culture of colorism, featureism, texturism that you want to use to implicate Black men into some horrible crime, this can be found in other races of men, and in many cases is so much worse. I turn your attention now to, I mentioned this in a live before, but I want to bring it up again. A body that does not compare. How white men define Black female beauty in the era of color blindness. I turn your attention real quickly to this. This is a quote from this study that says, just the term Black woman conjures up thoughts of an overweight, dark-skinned, loud, poorly educated person with gold teeth yelling at somebody in public. I hope that doesn't make me racist, but honestly, that's the one thing I think of. Lee, middle-class white man in his 30s from Florida. It says this quote, provides a highly racialized, gendered, and classed view of Black women. Lee is a middle-class white man with no Black female friends, rare interactions with Black families growing up, and who states his interactions with Black women only consist of work-related experiences. He expresses strong negative views of Black women as unattractive and educated, as the first thoughts that come to his mind are white men or non-Black men. Are they being judged through the same lens? Because the evidence shows that white men are first looking for white women. The evidence also shows from a study that was conducted at the University of Colorado Boulder, Genders, College of Arts and Science, it shows that white men still have racialized views of Black bodies, specifically Black women. Case in point, you're not their preference. I'm not saying this obviously for all white men, but you want to talk about colors, you want to talk about featurism, texturism, you're probably going to deal with that if you try to integrate, if you try to exclusively date. So, are you looking at white men through the same lens? That's just my question. Are you looking at them? If you're looking at them through the same lens, then okay, maybe no issue. And for every single man at that point, every single man you got to look through, and they have to jump through these hoops and prove to you they're not color, texture, feature, all these is. Okay, fine. Maybe that's a fair stance. Now, of course, that's going to further eliminate you, because if you don't have a man in your life, and you are in the United States of America, unless you're making a whole lot of money, there's a lot of a heavy load that you're going to have to carry. And then if you end up having kids, you don't have a man. That's a whole other conversation.
So I was waiting for someone to comment and ask this question. A lot of y'all about to get mad at me. The problem is, a lot of people are taught and raised to stay within their race. A lot of people spend time dating people to satisfy their families, when you should only be satisfying you. As a Black woman, I can say that there's a lot of Black men that come from traumatizing backgrounds. They suffer from abandonment issues, mental issues, not to say that any other race do not, but it's very, very common in the Black community. Whereas there's a lot of white men and others, Asian, Puerto Rican, where they're taught certain things at a young age and they become men at a very young age, and that's why you see them getting married at a young age and they're able to buy a house. They have careers by the time they're 30, and they know what it is to live life. They know how to treat a woman because they were raised with that background. And I'm not saying anything to discredit Black men. Trust me, I'm not. I love Black men. But as sisters, we are tired of being the men in the relationship. We are tired of picking up the slack where some of y'all mamas should have taught y'all and y'all fathers should have been active in your lives. So a lot of us are curious about the other kind. And if that's what makes us happy and if that's what we want to do, it should be no issue, because I don't have an issue with a Black man dating a white woman or an Asian woman or whatever, whoever makes him happy. The point of the matter is we want love. And sometimes you got to step out of your element to find what is really for you. You have to be open. And a lot of people are so stuck on the things that happened back in the day or the racism issue. A lot of people are so stuck on that, and they hate to see others with others. I have white people in my family, so I am never opposed to dating outside of my race. I was not taught to be like that. Love doesn't have a color, and it should never have a color, because at the end of the day, we all have the same color of blood. So collectively, I can speak for most. Us Black women are tired, and we want to try something new. And something new may be the best thing for us, and we won't know until we give it a try. I hope that answered your question.
Let it be clear, Black people have always been the most eager and the most open to integrate into white families, into white societies. Why? Because white people hold the power. They usually hold the wealth and resources. So generally speaking, Black people are more open to interracial dating or interracial engagement, because when it comes to clash or when it comes to the power dynamic, Black people are below white people in the West. So I'm like, of course, Black people as a collective are going to be more open. So when she's talking about, oh, you know, a lot of us were told to stay race loyal, that's generally more white people. White people generally are taught more so to be race loyal than Black folks. I'm not saying it doesn't happen across the board, but again, if you're talking about a power dynamic, if you're talking about wealth and resources and maintaining the current system, there's more incentive for white people to remain, you know, passing their wealth from class to class. That's literally what anti-miscegenation laws were about. Many of them were established and they were done based upon keeping the power and wealth in certain families. That's even why there are certain elite families that would marry cousins and distant cousins and keep it in the family, because they wanted to maintain power and control. Generally, the Black community, I think, is a lot more open than we want to believe. If that wasn't the case, then the civil rights movement wouldn't have that wouldn't have been a thing. That wouldn't have been fought for, and we wouldn't have had ancestors who literally went and risked their lives and their comforts and their freedoms to get integrated into white spaces. So, like, I understand these talking points and I understand these ideals, but I'm like, I'm like, okay, let's try to look at this in its totality. And if the idea is that, oh, Black women are so loyal because they were pressured to, not true. That's just not true. I think there may be some cultural pressure there. Sure, I don't want to completely deny that. But I think for many of us, it's more of a lack of options. I think that's really what's going on. But let me continue.
When you should only be satisfying you. As a Black woman, I can say that there's a lot of Black men that come from traumatizing backgrounds. They suffer from abandonment issues, mental issues, not to say that any other race do not, but it's very, very common in the Black community. Whereas...
Okay, so y'all heard that. Black men suffer from trauma, they got PTSD, they've had bad relationships, they had bad families, they had bad examples. Granted, let's just assume that's true. Black women didn't. Black women didn't. Black women, again, who grew up in the same families of these Black men, didn't see, you know, unhealthy family dynamics, don't have PTSD, don't have trauma, don't have, you know, traumatizing situations. Black women don't. Again, and that's what I'm saying. How is it that all of the worst aspects of our childhood, or all the trauma, or all the dysfunction somehow was inherited by Black men and completely just overlooked Black women? Like, that's not how life works. Y'all grew up in the same environment. Y'all grew up in the same household. Both of y'all were impacted. It may come out differently. It may look differently, but if we want to say that Black men are traumatized, okay, based upon that fact, you were too. If you came from the same household, really no way to get around it. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we can take this kind of separatist approach, and we can try, and I get it. Because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the Black community where you're just like, I don't identify with that. I don't want nothing to do with that. I don't like that. Like, I get it. I absolutely get it. But there's certain things that just impact you, period. You can't get away from it. And you can try to escape it. But if you try to escape it and you don't acknowledge that it impacted you too, then you just start looking like a hypocrite. And I think that's what happens for many of us. I'm like, how do we keep on saying Black men are so dysfunctional, but then Black women aren't? That don't make no sense. We're both culpable. We're both impacted on some level. Let me continue with
as there's a lot of white men and others, Asian, Puerto Rican, where they're taught certain things at a young age and they become men at a very young age. And that's why you see them getting married at a young age and they're able to buy a house. They have careers by the time they're 30. And
okay, here's another thing, y'all. Okay, here's another thing. And I know this is too, Black men, right? Well, we'll try to compare race to race, and it's like, oh, well, Black men don't do this, but white men do this, or Asian men do that. And I'm like, okay, granted. She mentioned homes. She mentioned being taught how to do this, how to maybe run businesses, how to run marriages, families, things like that. Again, if you want to try to implicate an entire people group, or if you want to try to maybe judge or measure where an entire race of men or women is at, you cannot devoid that from what actually happened or what is happening. You want to talk about, passing over homes, passing over wealth. Just not too long ago, Black people weren't even allowed to be doctors or to be lawyers or to be engineers or even have access to certain homes or to be able to own homes. The amount of towns that were in America that Black people built that were burned down are countless. So this is where, to me, when we have these conversations and we try to say Black men aren't doing this, but white men are doing that, if you can say that honestly and then overlook not only race, but history, what has happened and still is happening, then that is a completely dishonest conversation. And it's so interesting to me how these conversations there's usually all these reasons as why Black men just need to kind of pull themselves up by the bootstrap and just figure it out, forget about systematic oppression, forget about racism, forget about the man, forget about whatever, just work hard, which is like, okay, most men are willing to do that. Most men are willing to say, I don't care about racism, I don't care about none of this, I'm just going to work hard and get my money. Most men are okay with that deal. But now when it comes to women and where maybe we're falling short or we're doing wrong, oh, well, racism is making me fat. Oh, well, dieting is white supremacy. Oh, well, I can't wear my natural hair because I'm discriminated against. Like, now it becomes all about racism, or all comes about all the discrimination or all these things that are impeding Black women or we can't be we can't be feminine because our men are masculine, because back in slavery. We want to talk about slavery and racism when it comes to how we aren't measuring up. But then when men aren't measuring up, it's like, oh, well, white men can do it. And that's where I think, again, these conversations are really imbalanced. They're really imbalanced. I don't really think it should be about trying to point the finger. I'm more like, okay, let's just try to have an honest assessment of what is going on. But if your assessment is, oh, men are doing it right over here, they're all wrong, I'm right, so this or that, which is kind of what it's actually been, at a certain point, that is very isolating. And then you're not even giving, I think at that point, you're not even giving men the benefit of the doubt. You're not even giving them a voice. And that's really what's been happening, especially when they're talking about dating and marrying out. Dating and marrying out specifically. These are the different ideas. Oh, this, that, Black men are traumatized, white men aren't, Black men are poor, white men aren't, Black men, these are the different excuses that come up. But then if a Black man, whether he dates or marries out, maybe even if he marries a Black woman from the diaspora, whatever it may be, he's corny, he's gay, he's lame. That's it. There is no nuance. There is no, well, Black woman or this or Black woman or that. None of that. If Black men do this thing, if they consider dating and marrying out, or if they consider grabbing their passports, if they consider any of these things, they are corny, gay, and lame. But for Black women, oh no, it's because, they treat us like queens or goddesses, or it's because these men have more resources, they're taught, they're emotionally available. We have all these excuses. And all I'm saying is, okay, if those excuses can exist for Black women, why can't they exist for Black men? Because y'all both grew up in the same environment. Y'all both grew up under the same system. Y'all both had the same mama, same daddies. So don't act like one of y'all was traumatized and another one isn't. If you want to sit here and say all these Black women are traumatized, you yourself were too. Because that's your dad, that's your uncle, that's your brother, that's your son. But somehow you are connected. Let me continue. I'm almost done.
They know what it is to live life. They know how to treat a woman because they were raised with that background.
Okay.
And I'm not saying anything.
Again, I'm saying that too. I'm like, for all, and I think, because I see some of these women, and I'm like, I'll see like, Black women to me that seem like, okay, that generally seem like they're not trying to hate on nobody, but it's just like they took the Kool-Aid. But I don't think it's vindictive. Like there's some Black women out there who I think are legitimately like vindictive and they hate Black men. And then I think there's some who are just misinformed. It's just like, sis, no, like, let's unpack that. So she don't seem like she's trying to hate on anybody. But I'm like, this is the same sisterhood rhetoric that we've all heard. And as I mentioned before, if all these white men were treating white women so good, as she described or alluded to in her video, feminism would have never happened. Never. It wouldn't have needed to have been created. So history alone disagrees with that assessment. Because feminism was all about white women being discontented with their position in society. They wanted more power, they wanted more wealth, they wanted more agency because they were not happy with their relationship with men and their relationship in that society. So again, what she's saying, it may make sense emotionally based upon the different stuff we've heard on social media, but it is ahistorical for that simple fact. Let me continue.
To discredit black men. Trust me, I'm not. I love black men. But as sisters, we are tired of being the men in the relationship. We are tired of picking up the slack where some of y'all mamas should have taught y'all and y'all fathers should have been active in your lives. So a lot of us are curious about the other kind. And if that's what makes us happy and if that's what we want to do, it should be no issue, because I don't have an issue with a black man dating a white woman or an Asian woman or whoever makes him happy.
I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. She don't have an issue with it. Okay, let's just assume that's true. But black women do. By and large, we already know that they are not happy about. Black women are not happy if they see a man date or marry out. That is just false by and large. She may personally haven't had an issue with it, but we have scores and scores of evidence and years and decades to actually show that that's actually not true. That's actually not true. And what she alluded to before also, which is like, I don't understand why the only way we can put other people on a pedestal or other races on a pedestal is if you don't know them. If you actually personally know white people, Asian people, Hispanic people, whatever, you will know that they also struggle too. You have poor white people, you have lower middle class white people, they have their own struggles. It's not like everybody is waking up every single day and then going to Pilates and having organic pressed fruit juice and then getting their nails done, and like, that's not real life. There are plenty of women of other races who have struggles, who have narcissistic fathers or mothers or have abuse. I have talked to these women personally. I've been on the phone, hugged them, heard their stories. And it's very closed-minded to me. It's like this sense of curiosity. It's like, okay, one, do you not understand history? Two, do you not understand that at the end of the day, people are also still people and they struggle. Look, just even if you don't want to talk to a person, just go on Netflix. Okay, you will see countless stories of dysfunctional families, non-Black dysfunctional families. So it's like, what's even going on, people? Let me continue here.
The point of the matter is, we want love, and sometimes you got to step out of your element to find what is really for you. You have to be open. And a lot of people are so stuck on the things that happened back in the day or the racism issue. A lot of people are so stuck on that, and they hate to see others with others. I have white people in my family, so I am never opposed to dating outside of my race. I was not taught to be like that. Love doesn't have a color, and it should never have a color, because at the end of the day, we all have the same color of blood.
I understand this. Love is love. Like, again, I get it. It's just, if you want to be realistic about the way the society is set up, it doesn't look like that. People can fall in love and can have romantic have romantic connections, but let's not act like there is still not pressure within families, sometimes culturally, class-wise, to choose specific kinds of people. That definitely exist. Y'all know I'm reading a book about it. I'm going to bring sociologists literally to come on and talk about how people today are dating and mating and choosing partners, not based upon what they're saying, not based upon what we're seeing on television, but how they are actually moving. And I mentioned this before, race is the defining factor today, at least in the West, in America, when it comes to how people decide to settle down, who they choose. Race is the defining factor. Now we're gonna unpack why. Like I said, I'm gonna break that down in the interview and once I talk to the sociologist. But this whole love is love thing, I think it's great. And if we lived in a perfect utopian world, that would be really cute. But people internally, subconsciously or consciously, whatever, they don't always operate like that. And even if there is a person who holds that values, usually that person will have to fight against pressure of their families, pressure of whatever business, their social circle. And if they are higher up in the economic scale, if they are higher up in class, if they are higher up and maybe they have a family that has legacy, maybe they have a family that has resources, that pressure is harder. And a lot of people under that, if it's like, look, if I fall in love with somebody in my own race, or if I choose somebody in my own race, I'm going to get that house, that car, and that trust fund. versus if I date and marry somebody out and my parents aren't coming to my wedding, I'm not getting the trust fund, I'm not getting the house, I'm not getting tuition to college. A lot of people are going to choose, I'm going with somebody in my race. You know what I mean? So it's like we can't remove those kinds of situations from the conversation because all of that exists. Marriage, yeah, it's love, but there are obvious political and economic components of this. And again, when you're talking about especially wanting to date and marry maybe more successful men or men that have resources, all of those things are taken into consideration.
Black women are tired and we want to try something new. And something new may be the best thing for us. And we won't know until we give it a try. I hope that answered your question.
I think there was one live where I heard you say one of your initial classes, one of the first classes you had, or earlier classes you had, you noticed that it was predominantly non-Black women who were going in there studying Black men.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I mentioned that on a panel with Obsidian and Kevin Samuels.
Okay.
And I didn't know where that was going to go. Next thing I know, people were calling me because Kevin was saying it on some other show. But that went through stages. So I've been teaching now for about 24 years, and I came to Fresno State about 14 years ago. And I started teaching a Black male course because it was needed. You know, I'm looking at these young brothers who were getting accepted, and a lot of them were, dropping out. A lot of them really didn't have any support structure on how to navigate college. They were having, even the conversations I was listening to in the hallways, I was like, okay, if I don't grab some of these young men, they're not only going to be out of here, they might even be arbitrarily locked up behind things because some of them don't understand. So I created this class alongside a student group for Black males and began to implement that. And early on, what I found was I had more Black women than men, which, numerically is no surprise. That tends to be the case anyway, as far as the enrollment in school. But I started to get fewer and fewer men and more women because my initial training in my doctorate was as a feminist. I hadn't dealt with gender prior to my doctorate. So one of my primary mentors was ex-Black Panther. She was a feminist. And so I came in with that framework. The only way I knew how to deal with gender was through kind of what she taught me. So I'm teaching this Black male class using this approach I got in grad school. And I'm watching the numbers of Black males dwindle. I'm seeing the Black males in my class looking at the ground, just kind of disconnected. And I'm seeing the women more and more excited. And what I realized was that it was becoming a class where the young ladies were using me to finger wag at the men on the campus to kind of nudge them to do what they wanted them to do. So when I started to actually ask the men what their perspectives were, and I started to kind of change the narrative, it was a learning process for me as well as for them. And after a couple of years, I noticed the women stopped coming. The number of Black women dropped dramatically. The number of Black males started to increase. And then after that, within the next couple of years after that, I noticed I started to get this population of white women.
Yeah.
I didn't know why they were there. I didn't know why they were there. And when I began to kind of ask them, in the hallways under the, why are you taking this class? You have to be careful how you do it. And I started to find, well, my boyfriend is Black and I want to understand him and his family, or, I'm trying to date some of the men on the basketball team or football team or whatever, but I don't understand them. So they were doing research. They're getting A's.
Yeah. Very smart. Very smart.
It's a weird thing where I got to give A+ to white women in a class on Black males because they are handling all the homework assignments and reading everything to a T. They're asking me about the citations that were made by the author. I'm like, good Lord. But they were serious. They were doing research and they were serious about it. And I would say, another 3 or 4 years after that, I noticed the population shifted from, white women to Latinas. And the Latinas were coming in with the same kind of intensity, the same kind of questions, the same motivations. They were dating Black men. And this is Fresno. We're in Central California.
Yeah. No.
Black and Latino relationships here are not a strange thing by any measure. So, yeah.
Well, and again, go back to your early, because I said this is kind of what this conversation was born out of, this whole topic of grabbing your passport and SYSBMs and the controversy behind that. And it's like, you're literally telling me that you had a class that was dedicated to black men, where black women have an opportunity to study their men, understand what they're going through, understand how to relate to them better. And instead of us doing that, you have other women of other ethnic groups, other races going in, taking notes, using that as ammo to get the quote unquote best men out there. Yeah. So it's like, how can you compete with that? This is based upon what you just said. It's like, this is why they are winning our men. If that is such a big complaint, this is why these other women, white women, Latinas, Asians, this is why they are winning or stealing, however you want to put it, our men, because they're actually interested in their interest. Like I said, it goes back to, you know, when I asked you a few minutes ago, I was like, why are black men asking for so little? And then you go in to say, well, they're kind of used to that. They're socialized for that. You know, there's all these complicated dynamics. And if you meet somebody you're asking for breadcrumbs and they give you a sandwich, it's like,
oh yeah.
Like, oh, yeah. Whoa, what is this? You know?
No, Patrice O'Neal, one of my favorite comedians, he had a whole bit where he talked about the power of okay, like having women that actually say, okay, you know, can you give me a glass of water? Okay. And he was like, you know, it was mind blowing to hear a woman say it. And as funny as it was, and I remember I would listen to Patrice and all the women in my family, because I'd wait till Thanksgiving. And then I'd sit there and listen to Patrice, and you know, the women would get more and more quiet, laugh less and less, and I would laugh more and more because he was tapping into something that I didn't know I was frustrated about. I didn't know I was curious about. And he was kind of gently raising these concerns. But one of the things he joked about in that moment was, you know, just what it feels like to have somebody that is, you know, not only cooperative, but will happily so, you know, and just something as subtle as that, you know. And so, yeah, when you talk about the different groups of women that were coming to the class, and they're involved in deep conversations in the classes about relationships, they're asking questions, you know, it was a whole different dynamic, you know.
Now, do you think the concern was, do you think that it was genuine, or do you think some of it, because I see some in the comments like, oh, they were kind of using it as ammo just for fetishization, but they don't see them as real men deserving of love or respect? I mean, do you think you saw some of that woman using that as a way to try to manipulate better? Do you think there was a genuine?
Like I said, I've been teaching for 24 odd years, and I can tell you the way they came to the discussions, the way they participated, yeah, there was a lot of genuine, you know, kind of behavior, a lot of reflexivity. They're talking about their experiences, they're asking questions with a kind of genuine, you know, kind of sensibility about it. I don't think any of it was really performed in that way. I think what threw everybody was just that anybody was interested in even having the dialogue. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they were coming to class looking for boyfriends in the class. You know, they were coming to class to learn about black men because of the black men they were already dealing with. So, you know, so it was a different kind of sensibility, and there was an earnestness to the dialogues that were happening that even black men weren't used to. And it was kind of a strange thing. It wasn't negative by any means, but it was different, because when black women were the majority of the class, a lot of it was very argumentative. A lot of it was very critical of black men. I mean, I remember there was one class very early on where this young man had come out the military. He's over 6'3". He's, you know, well developed muscularly. He's almost done with his degree, and he was a virgin. He was a Christian. He was a virgin, and you know, he mentioned that in class, and the entire class of women went off on him and were trying to emasculate him at every turn. And I actually had to stop them because they weren't about to stop themselves. And it was just like, you know, why would you come to picture that. Picture a class on black women where the majority of the class are black men who come to talk about how horrible black women are. Like, when would you see that actually happen? You know what I mean?
No, would it?
And then everybody's tearing into one woman because she hasn't had sex yet. You know what I mean? It was that kind of dynamic, but the level of low-key hostility, what Kevin used to call low-boiling contempt, was so palpable that when that shifted over in the next couple of years, it was a strange thing to notice. Like, so even if there were somehow, you know, chameleons that were getting over on us or whatever, the level of hostility, and it was far less than what it had been. So, you know, it was strange. But I can tell you the class has been an interesting kind of lesson in racial dynamics because
Yeah.
white men made their appearance too. And they made their appearance in the form of a military recruiter and a police detective who came to arrest one of the students. So,
Wow.
so if you look at it symbolically, you have white men, black women, and Hispanic and Latino women who have all made their presence felt. And the most hostile were black women and white men to the very idea of studying black men. Right? The military recruiter wanted to take these men out of college and put them in the military. And of course, the detective wanted to arrest somebody. The black women wanted to denigrate the men in the class and finger wag. And then you had white women and Latinas who wanted to take notes and ask questions. So you tell me, who's the most hostile out of that?
You know, it's so sad to hear that because it's like, I hear these comments all the time in my page where, you know, it's essentially men are venting and they're like, you know, black women sold us out to white supremacy, or, you know, black women, they're the biggest white supremacists. So, you know, essentially things on that line. And it's like, you know, I'm never quick to just paint a broad stroke and to say, well, all black men are this or all black women are that. Cause I'm like, that's just simply not my experience. Right. But it's like at the same time, you know, what you mentioned, a class that was supposed to be about Black male studies. And when you initially started the paradigm and what was so comfortable at that moment for everybody was to essentially just blame black men. There was it didn't sound like it was comfortable or even expected to have a honest conversations about, hey, maybe we're, you know, men have struggled where they have been victimized and how that's impacted the family. Because it's like, and a community is made up of men and women. So both bring stuff to the table. And I honestly am quite sick of the conversation that I've heard for a long time where it's like, it's just all black men's fault. No, I'm not saying that, you know, there haven't been black men out there and there haven't been things that can be improved. You literally have channels of black men talking about the different issues that black men do to themselves. But it's like I think this culture of, again, you can't also go shine the light on women, or you're being misandrous, or you're being, you know, everything other than the son of God. Like, it's just really not healthy. And, you know, again, going back to when I asked this simple question, how to support black men practically, and I was shocked and not shocked at the response and the behavior, and it resonated with me so much. And I thought, even when I'm thinking about this different conversation in the pick-me space and the different, you know, female content creators that I love what they're doing and I love how we're having this conversation. But I'm thinking, I don't think any of us have been trained or taught or know what it means to lean in and say, okay, well, what are their interests? Because we can talk about it. Like I said, the last week or two, I've heard women talking about the best interests of black men, which I think is good. We should have the conversation. But how many of us know how to listen?
Well, and not only listen not to argue.
I need new flavor.
So this guy has made a show of going on a date with a woman from every state. And let me just show you why he's getting a lot of hate. I think it's fair to say that my guy has a type, but here's what really makes me mad. This is the girl he went on a date with from Hawaii. Like, sir, what you not finna do? You not finna play us, sir. You not finna play us, sir. Then this is the girl he went on a date with from New Mexico, who is actually, if you look on her Instagram, from Long Island. So, sir, if you have a type, you didn't even have to go across 50 states for that. Like, you really just dated the same girl in every single state. Like, where is the seasoning? Let me know y'all thoughts in the comments, because I'm feeling like this was unnecessary.
White men are not obligated to date and marry black women. There is no affirmative action in dating and mating. Men can be attracted to whatever race or ethnicity of women that they want. And also, by the way, most men tend to be attracted to women within their ethnic group. Don't believe me? Just look at the marriage stats. By and large, people are still marrying within their own ethnic group. So a white man going around 50 states and choosing to date white women is not surprising. It's not racist. There's not some like weird undertone. It's actually quite natural. People who love and like themselves generally tend to pick other people who favor them physically. Like I said, this is not new. And so this is one of the reasons why I don't like the way the whole swirling conversation has gone online. Well, I have no issue with interracial relationships. It almost gives Black women in particular this false expectation that other races of men are now obligated to pick them, and they're not. Even if you are open to dating or a white man or being with a white man, does not mean that he has to be open to you back. Doesn't mean he has to choose you. There are some men at the end of the day who their preference is going to be their women. A lot of white men at the end of the day, their preference is white women. There's nothing wrong with that. That is okay. That is healthy. That is natural. That doesn't need to be policed. But we need to stop shaming guys. In my opinion, you got to stop shaming guys for doing what is quite natural. There is no affirmative action in dating and mating, period. And that's okay. Let men have their preference. If the guy doesn't like you, fine. Find somebody else who does. But the whole need to try to police what men like and why they like, to me, it's just weird. And sometimes it makes Black women look desperate if we continue to try to scrutinize why white men like white women. They like white women because a lot of them want kids who look like themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is okay.
I'm really excited to announce my new kids book, Aisha Learns to Love Her Hair. Aisha's hair is stunning, but she struggles to see its beauty. Through encouragement and wisdom from Grandma Lily, Aisha learns powerful lessons about self-acceptance. Aisha's journey is a heartwarming tale of family, culture, and confidence. Share her magical journey with your little loved one today, available for purchase.
It's a nightfall, let the whole world see. Black kings rising high in our own destiny. Moving through the storm, proud and bold we stand. Shining like gold, love's in command.
Miss Andrew tried to put him down with a Miss Andrew vibe, but Jermaine flipped the script, now watch him thrive. In a classroom of doubters, his spirit never fell. Every harsh word turned to beats that made him rebel. They came the neighborhood dropping wisdom like a rhyme. Challenged that old Miss Andrew said, not on my time. With his wife Nia Swahili for strength and grace by his side, they set the record straight with humor and pride. In the dating game and gender wars where opinions clash and play, Jermaine and his crew keep it smooth, dancing hate away from awkward first dates to the battle of the hearts. They flip the script with funky vibes and soulful arm talk. Let them squabble, we're too fly to be confined. Every snide remark just fuels the fire of our mind. With laughter as our armor and pride, our battle cry. Black men rise above it all, reaching up into the sky.
Fall, let the whole world see. Black kings rising high in our own destiny. Moving through the storm, proud and bold we stand. Shining like gold, love's in command.
Miss Andre tried to put him down with her Miss Andre vibe, but Jermaine flipped the script, now watch him thrive. In a classroom of doubters, his spirit never fell. Every harsh word turned to beats that made him rebel. Then came the neighborhood dropping wisdom like a rhyme. Challenged that old Miss Andrew said, not on my time. With his wife Nia Swahili for strength and grace by his side, they set the record straight with humor and pride. Game and gender wars where opinions clash and play, Jermaine and his crew keep it smooth, dancing hate away from awkward first dates to the battle of the hearts. They flip the script with funky vibes and soulful art talk. Let them squabble, we're too fly to be confined. Every snide remark just fuels the fire of our mind. With laughter as our armor and pride, our battle cry. Black men rise above it all, reaching up to the sky.
Fall, let the whole world see. Black kings rising high in our own destiny. Moving through the storm, proud and bold we stand. Shining like gold,
Let them talk, let them squabble, we're too fly to be confined. Every snide remark just fuels the fire of our mind. With laughter as our armor and pride, our battle cry. Black men rise above it all, reaching up to the
Angels
sky.
rain fall, let the whole world see.